Before we begin, I want to take a moment to honor the cultures behind the stories we are about to explore. The tales shared here come from many peoples, lands, and traditions. I do not change these stories to fit modern expectations or to align with today's social standards. Instead, I present them as they were told, sometimes beautiful, sometimes harsh, sometimes challenging. We are not here to judge the past, but to understand it, to listen, to learn, and to honor the ancestors who carried these stories forward. We also share stories from various religious traditions. These are presented in their historical and spiritual context, with respect for their beliefs that they represent. Every culture deserves respect, context, and acknowledgement, and this space is dedicated to doing exactly that. Story 1, The Mirror Kami, What Looks Back. There are objects that do not simply reflect what stands before them, but hold something deeper, something that does not reveal itself at once. In certain traditions of Japan, mirrors are not regarded as ordinary tools, but as vessels, still, polished surfaces through which presence may be recognized. They are kept in shrines, placed carefully, never treated casually, for it is understood that what appears within them is not always limited to the visible world, to the visible form. In other tellings, there are accounts of mirrors that have been watched over generations, their surfaces untouched by time, their clarity preserved through careful tending. These mirrors are not used for vanity or inspection. They are placed where light can reach them, where stillness gathers, where the air remains undisturbed. Those who come before them do not approach quickly. They pause. They allow their breath to settle, their thoughts to quiet, until the act of looking becomes something more than recognition. At first, the reflection appears as expected. The outline of a face, the familiar arrangement of features, the movement of eyes that follow their own gaze. Yet those who remain, who do not turn away, begin to notice something shifting, not in the mirror itself, but in what is seen. The expression alters, not through movement, but through awareness. What once seemed fixed begins to feel less certain, as though the image is not being projected outward, but drawn from somewhere within. There are stories of individuals who stood before such mirrors and found themselves unable to leave, not from fear, but from sense that something had not been fully revealed. The longer they remained, the more the surface seemed to deepen, no longer a flat reflection, but a threshold. The figure in the mirror did not change form, yet it no longer felt entirely separate. The distance between observer and reflection began to narrow, until it was no longer clear which was watching and which was being watched. In some accounts, a presence is said to dwell within the mirror, not as a separate being, but as an aspect of awareness that cannot be seen without stillness. It does not speak, it does not move independently, yet it responds, a shift in thought, a quiet recognition, a moment of clarity. These are reflected not in appearance, but in the way the image is perceived. What was once overlooked becomes visible. What was assumed becomes uncertain. These mirrors are often associated with the sacred, not because they contain something divine in a fixed sense, but because they reveal what is already present. In certain shrines, a mirror stands in place of a figure, representing not an image of a deity, but the presence itself. To look into it is not to see the divine as something separate, but to encounter the possibility that it exists within the act of seeing. There are cautions, though they are not spoken loudly. One is not to approach such a mirror in haste, or with the intention of finding something specific. The more one tries to force recognition, the more the surface returns only what is expected. It is in the absence of demand, in the willingness to simply remain, that something begins to shift. The mirror does not give answers. It reveals what is already there, waiting to be acknowledged. Over time, those who have stood before such reflections carry something with them, though nothing visible has changed. The way they look at the world begins to alter. They notice expressions before they form, sense meaning beneath words, recognize patterns that once passed unseen. The reflection does not remain in the mirror. It follows, not as an image, but as a way of seeing. There are no marks left behind, no signs that anything has occurred. The mirror remains as it always was, still, clear, unchanged. Others may stand before it and see nothing beyond themselves. Yet for those who have remained long enough, who have allowed the surface to become more than a boundary, the act of looking is no longer simple. And so the mirror waits, holding nothing and revealing everything, depending on how it is approached. Some glance and move on, some linger, uncertain of what they have seen, and a few stand long enough to understand that the reflection was never separate to begin with, that what looks back is not a stranger, but something that has always been there, waiting. Story 2, The Doppelgänger, the self that walks apart. There are tellings from the forests and old roads of Germanic lands of a figure who does not arrive as a stranger, but as something far more unsettling. One who bears your face, your height, your way of moving through the world, yet exists beyond your control. This presence, called the doppelgänger, is not a reflection caught in still water or polished glass, but a living likeness encountered where no reflection should be. It is said that some first glimpse at it at a distance, walking ahead along a path they themselves had not yet taken, its form unmistakable even from afar. Others see it standing in a place they are about to enter, turning just slightly as though aware of being watched. The recognition comes before understanding, a quiet certainty that what is seen is not another, but oneself. Those who witness it often speak of a strange stillness that follows, as though the world has paused to allow the moment to settle, as though something has stepped out from beneath the surface of what is known and taken form within it. The encounter is not treated as a simple omen, though many have feared it as such. It is understood instead as a crossing, a moment in which the self is no longer contained within a single form or path. The figure does not speak, does not reach, does not demand acknowledgement, yet its presence carries a weight that cannot be ignored. Some who see it turn away quickly, refusing to look again, choosing to continue forward, as though nothing has occurred. Yet even in refusal, the knowledge remains. Others stand still, unable to deny what is before them, sensing that the figure is not separate, but an extension of something not yet faced. In certain tellings, the devil appears not ahead, but beside, mirroring movement with perfect precision, each step matched, each pause shared, until a distinction between the two becomes difficult to hold. There are rare accounts, spoken in quieter tones, of those who encounter their double face to face, close enough to see the smallest details, the same eyes, the same breath, the same stillness, and in that moment felt not fear alone, but recognition, as though something hidden had been revealed without permission. What follows such an encounter is not always immediate, but it is lasting. The figure does not remain, does not follow, does not linger in visible form, yet its presence does not fully depart. Those who have seen it begin to notice a shift, not in the world itself, but in how much they move through it. Choices feel less singular, as though each carries the echo of another possibility. Actions take on a different weight, as though they are being witnessed not only by others, but by something that already knows their outcome. The self, once assumed to be fixed and contained, begins to feel more expansive, less certain in its boundaries. There is an awareness that what one is does not end at what is visible, that there are forms of becoming that exist beyond the present moment, moving alongside it in ways not always seen. The devil, though no longer visible, becomes a kind of presence within perception, a reminder that identity is not a single line, but something that branches, shifts, and unfolds. Over time, the memory of the encounter settles into something quieter. It is no longer a moment of shock, but a point of understanding that reshapes how the self is held. Those who carry it do not speak of it often, not because it fades, but because it resists simple telling. It cannot be explained as illusion, nor fully accepted as something separate. It exists in the space between, where certainty gives way to awareness. The path one walks continues forward. Yet there is a sense that they are not walked alone, even in solitude. Not in the presence of another body, but in the recognition that the self is not singular, that it contains within it what is seen, what is, and what has yet to take form. And though the figure may never be seen again, its impression remains steady and undeniable, as a quiet knowing that what once stood apart has already been part of the whole all along. Story 3, The Water Mirror, What Rises from Stillness. There are waters that do not move, even when wind passes over them, even when the world around them shifts and stirs. In the forests and lowlands of Slavic lands, such places are known and remembered. Dark pools, deep wells, stretches of river where the current slows until the surface becomes like glass. These are not approached lightly. It is said that when water becomes too still, it no longer reflects only what stands above it, but what lies beneath and what lingers between. Those who come to these waters often do so with purpose, though the purpose is not always spoken aloud. They kneel at the edge or stand in quiet observation, waiting for the surface to settle completely, for the last ripple to fade. Only then do they look. At first, the reflection appears as it should, the outline of the face, the movement of breath, the shifting of light across familiar features. Yet those who remain, who do not break the surface or turn away too quickly, begin to notice that the image does not hold in the same way. The water seems to deepen, not physically, but in its presence, as though the reflection is not resting upon it, but emerging from within it. The face remains, yet something beneath it begins to show, not as a separate figure, but as a subtle alteration, a difference in the way the eyes are held, the way stillness gathers around the form. In some tellings, the reflection lags behind movement, responding not to the body above, but to something quieter, something that does not shift as quickly. In others, it appears to move before the one who stands there, as though it carries knowledge of what has not yet been done. There are stories of those who looked too long and felt themselves drawn inward, not into the water itself, but into the depths of what it revealed. The boundary between surface and self begins to blur, until it is no longer clear whether the reflection belongs to the one who stands above or to something that has been waiting below. This is not a pulling of the body, but of awareness, a quiet unraveling of the certainty that what is seen is all that exists. Those who step back quickly often dismiss what they witnessed, attributing it to light or shadow, to the movement of water that was not truly still. Yet the image does not fully leave them. It lingers in memory, not as something clearly defined, but as a feeling that something more was present than could be named. Others remain longer not out of curiosity alone, but because they sense that the moment holds something that cannot be recovered once broken. They watch as the surface continues to hold, as a reflection settles into something quieter, more steady. In that stillness, the difference becomes clear, not in form, but in recognition. What looks back is not familiar, yet it is not entirely known. It carries the trace of what has been endured, the weight of what has been hidden, the shape of what has not yet taken form. It does not accuse or reveal in any dramatic sense. It simply exists, unable, undeniable in its presence, asking nothing, yet offering no escape from what is seen. When the moment ends, it ends simply. A breath disturbs the surface. A hand moves. The reflection breaks, returning to its ordinary form, scattered into light and motion. The water resumes its quiet existence, unchanged, holding nothing of what was seen. Those who rise and leave carry no visible mark, no sign that anything has occurred. Yet something has shifted. The certainty of a single image has been replaced with something less fixed, more open, more difficult to ignore. In the days that follow, the world appears as it always has, yet the act of seeing no longer feels the same. Reflections in glass, in passing water, in any surface that holds an image, begin to carry a different weight. There is an awareness that what is visible is only one layer, that beneath it there is something quieter, something that does not reveal itself unless one is willing to remain. The memory of the still water does not demand truth, yet it remains present, a quiet reminder that the surface is not the whole. And so these places are remembered, not marked by sign or boundary, but known through telling. Some seek them out and find nothing beyond their own reflection. Some avoid them entirely, unwilling to stand before what may rise. And there are those who come, who wait, who look without breaking the surface, and who leave with the understanding that what they have seen was not separate, not other, but part of what has always been there, held beneath movement, waiting in stillness to be recognized. Story 4, The Shadow Double, the Self that Walks in Light and Dark. In the lands where sun and shadow move sharply across stone and forest, there are teachings that a person is not made of one form alone, but of more than what can be seen in the light. Among Maya traditions, there is an understanding that each individual carries a companion, not bound to flesh, something that walks with them, not always visible, yet never absent. This presence is sometimes spoken of as a shadow double, not merely the outline cast by the body, but a deeper counterpart, one that exists alongside, shaped by the same life, yet not limited to the same path. It does not separate itself in ordinary moments, but there are times, especially in places where the boundary between worlds grows thin, when its presence becomes known. Such moments are often quiet. A person walking alone at dusk may notice that their shadow does not fall as expected, stretching where there is no clear source of light, or lingering when the body has moved on. In still places, near old stones beneath trees that have stood longer than memory, or beside water that reflects more than sky, there are those who feel a second awareness, not outside themselves, but not entirely within. The sensation is not one of being followed, but of being accompanied, as though something that has always been present has stepped closer to the surface. It does not speak, does not take form in a way that can be easily described, yet it carries a weight that cannot be dismissed. In older tellings, this devil is not regarded with fear, but with respect. It is understood to hold what is not always visible in the waking self, the memories that are not spoken, the instincts that move before thought, the parts of the spirit that do not fully reside in the body alone. It is said that to live without awareness of this companion is to move through the world only partially, guided by what is immediate while leaving behind what is deeper and less easily known. Yet to encounter it directly is not a simple matter. It is not summoned or sought in the way one might search for an object. It reveals itself when attention shifts, when the surface of awareness grows still enough to allow something beneath it to be recognized. There are stories of those who become aware of their double in moments of change, times when the path ahead was uncertain, when decisions carried weight beyond the immediate. In such moments, the presence does not offer instruction, does not guide in any direct sense, yet it alters the way a person stands within their own life. There is a recognition that the self is not singular, that it holds within it layers that move in different ways, at different times. The devil does not replace the one who walks in the light, nor does it exist apart from them. It is both within and alongside, inseparable yet distinct in its awareness. When the moment passes, the devil does not remain visible. The shadow returns to its ordinary place, moving as expected, responding to the light that shapes it. Yet something of the encounter lingers. The one who has felt that presence does not return to the same certainty of a single self. There is an awareness, quiet but persistent, that what is seen is not all that exists, that identity is not fixed to one form or one way of being. This does not divide the self, but deepens it, allowing for a recognition that there are aspects of life that move beneath the surface, influencing without being fully known. In the days that follow, the world continues as it always has, yet perception carries a different weight. Shadows are noticed not only as absence of light, but as presence of form. Movements feel less isolated, more connected to something that extends beyond the immediate. The self is no longer held as a single point, but as something that unfolds, shaped by what is visible and what is not. The devil does not need to appear again for this understanding to remain. It becomes part of the way a person moves, a quiet acknowledgement that they are accompanied even in solitude. And so the shadow continues to fall with the body, stretching and shifting with the light, appearing ordinary to those who do not look closely. Yet for those who have felt its deeper presence, it is no longer only a shape cast by the sun. It is a reminder that what walks in the world is not alone, that beneath every visible form there is something that endures, that observes, that moves in ways not always seen. It does not demand recognition, yet once it has been known, it cannot be entirely forgotten, remaining as part of the self that continues forward, changed, though outwardly the same.